Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers. We're here to talk Seahawks football after I think what will end up being viewed as a somewhat historic NFL draft for the Seahawks. I think it was just a knockout of the park, kind of a draft for John Schneider and company. Pretty exciting weekend, and really anxious to talk about all those picks with you. Got some a little bit of news up front. Seattle exercises its fifth-year option on first-round draft pick left tackle Charles Cross. So he is up for that fifth-year option this year. They needed to exercise that by the end of the month here, and did so. So Charles Cross is going to be on the roster next year in 2026, and it's like a $17.5 million cap hit to do that, which is a bargain for a left tackle in the NFL. And Seahawks started 2026 forecasted anyway right now to have $103 million of cap space prior to the announcement, down to $86 million or so, because that's a fully guaranteed deal. Mm-hmm. And they will start to work on an extension, I would imagine, anytime between now and 2026, or before the league year starts that year. What do you think about that? And welcome in. Let's talk NFL draft and wrap this thing up for the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, that makes an insane amount of sense for the Seahawks. If they had gone and the draft had fallen in a weird way and they got a tackle in this draft that they believed, was going to take over for Cross a year from now, then they may not have done that, but they didn't. And so therefore you push that can down the road another year. It also gives them more time to work out an extension, because if it doesn't get done this year, they can still do it next year. And what you do is you just start at that $17 million number as far as what he's going to make in the year one of that. As long as it's above that, between between bonus and salary for year one, then it's attractive to him to sign the new deal. So yeah, it gives them a starting point for that, and it just makes the whole situation here just smoother.
I think with Charles Cross too, it's interesting. It depends on what happens this year. I think everything is for him on the line this season to really perform at a level that he would like to base that contract on, that future contract. So far, he hasn't reached, all of us kind of think anyway, hasn't reached that full potential that I think that he has. I would argue, though, that this new regime and scheme give him the opportunity to really put himself in the best position to kind of reach that Pro Bowl level, if you will. I don't think he's ever going to be an all-pro. He's a little bit finesse kind of for that, but he can really do a great job in this zone blocking scheme because he is athletic. He does have a lot of upside that way. And I don't know that Seattle's going to have to break the bank to retain him on an extension. I don't think they have to reset the market for left tackles for him, for an example. I think that he's viewed by all metrics, I think, as a slightly above average, a little above mid-tier level left tackle in the market. So I'm going to say fringy top 10, probably closer to top 15 left tackle in the NFL right now. Now, if he had an outstanding season, he could break through that top 10 level, and then you could make an argument about resetting the market where he's got top 10, top 5 level compensation coming his way. What are your thoughts around that? And it seems to me that it would be a no-brainer to retain him at whatever cost that ends up happening, because it's hard to find those left tackles in the NFL. And you almost have to go out and draft another one and just kind of hope it happens, because going out and paying somebody else rather than Charles Cross to come in and be your left tackle doesn't make a lot of sense.
Agreed. And I mean, you look at him, where he's at, what it'll cost. It makes a lot of sense. Like, some people are really down on him. I don't get that. It does not match what I see.
I think he falls into that bucket of the entire offensive line sucks.
True, it does.
Right.
It did last year,
Right.
but it was mostly up the middle. And then, well, right tackle was not as good as the year before, but you've got a situation where it was so bad inside that it's hard to judge exactly what he was doing, because it was like, what was where were his cues? What were his reads as far as when to move and who to pick up and that kind of stuff? And did the other people do what they were supposed to do? And their offensive line was so bad on the interior last year that I don't think all of the stuff we saw that didn't work was on him. And I'm hoping that gets cleaned up a lot this year. The other thing is that this new scheme fits him really well. He's going to be great in this new scheme. And so I think that he has a chance to really have a great year and just kind of have that instance where he's going to be viewed better a year from now than now.
Yeah, I think there's a great chance for that. Okay, let's get to what we've kind of been waiting for, Keith. You and I have we didn't immediately come back right after the draft and record. We had a guest appearance on a show on Saturday while the draft was going on, or was it Friday, right?
It was Friday.
I can't remember.
It was Friday night.
Anyway, we were on with Dan Viennes on the Seahawks Forever podcast. I was up first. I spent the second round with Dan. I was there for that trade up to go get Emanwari at 35. I was also there for the Aurora pick at 52. You came on after that, and you were there for the Jalen Milroe pick, and all sorts of fun discussions with Dan around that. Tell me about that experience with you and just kind of being live on his show when that was going on.
Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, Dan's great. I love talking with him, and he and I go way back, like about a decade now, because he was my co-editor at 12th Man Rising for a little bit. And yeah, I mean, great guy and a lot of fun, very, very knowledgeable. And he got to go down to Mobile this year and be at the Senior Bowl for the entire week of practices and everything, which is fantastic. And so he had a lot of insight on a couple of guys that, with information that you wouldn't hear elsewhere. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. We've got a standing invite, by the way, if you want to go down there. We would operate kind of as a team with him and Bryce Coots and you and I, and we could quarter the field and essentially cover all the different areas that they work out. Okay.
There is one problem with that plan.
Oh yeah.
It involves the fact that I would have to go to Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah. Mobile.
I'm really afraid to do that, but okay.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those places. It's one of those states I haven't been to yet, and I've been to nearly every state. It's kind of crazy. Okay, so let's talk Seattle draft. This went for me about as good as you can do all the way throughout. Really, I mean, there's a couple picks that are going to be kind of, well, we'll see if they make the roster, and I don't know exactly where they fit. We'll talk about those. But let's start up front and just kind of go through this thing as it happened. These picks start to roll off. It seemed like it's going Seattle's way. Booker comes off, though, earlier than expected, and I thought, ooh, we could end up getting a run on the offensive line here for whatever reason. Sometimes it happens. Zabel's been projected to go before the actual draft in Daniel Jeremiah's draft at 11 overall to the 49ers. So I know that there was some discussion there about him being in that range. And Seattle's on the clock. Keith, what's going through your mind?
Well, what's going through my mind there is I'm like, okay, are they going to trade back, and try and pick up another pick, or are they going to stick and take
and do the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, and part of me kind of wished that they'd moved back a couple spots and gotten some more ammunition and whatever. But ultimately, what it came down to was this was the guy they wanted. This was the guy that they had targeted from the very beginning, from the Senior Bowl. Like, Gray Zabel has always been the guy they wanted. And rather than try and get cute and move down and have that opportunity for someone else to grab him and screw up their plans, they were like, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to take him. And that was the right answer.
Yes.
I love that they went and got him where they did.
This is a player, Keith, that we talked about throughout the entire process. We mocked him. I mocked him at least 2 different times on my mock drafts to Seattle in between 18 and 30 some odd if we moved up off of 50. And this is a player that just made perfect sense, except for the idea that, well, John is not going to do that because it makes too much sense. He's not going to take a guard that early or a center.
He doesn't take guards that early. He always talks about how they're overdrafted and overpaid. That was the thing from a year ago. And all of that. Honestly, yeah, they might be, but Zabel can play all 5 positions along the offensive line. He's instantly an upgrade at 3 of them. They're going to play him at left guard. And that's the plan going forward. So at least for now. And so we know exactly where he's going to play. He's an easy upgrade compared to anything they've got. And
we had Tomlinson there last year, and that's an easy upgrade right there. Just boom.
Yeah.
Upgrade. Yeah, no, they're going to start him at left guard. We heard that on draft day from Steve Hutchinson, who advises Seattle, that he was going to be there. Extremely versatile blocker. You mentioned it, can play all 5 positions if needed. Just really aggressive, violent hands, finisher in the run blocking game. Nice feet for pass blocking, especially inside. You move him inside, it's no brainer. And he's got Pro Bowl level talent there at left guard, potentially all pro level at center. But I think value wise, it makes more sense to have him at left guard. You and I talked about this prior to the draft that, if you take him, you felt more comfortable with his projection at center. And I made the argument, well, I think he's got more value at guard. And at 18, and based on what they said with Hutchinson, I think that makes the most sense. I do agree, though, he always will be an option at center.
Yeah.
If they find another, but it's more difficult to find that left guard than it is a center. And so it ends up being difficult all the way around anyway, because there just aren't that many Pro Bowl caliber interior offensive linemen in the NFL. It's a premium position. So I'm really thankful that we ended up pulling the trigger on this. It really set the draft up for me in a way that allowed everything else after that to kind of come to them. The nice thing about the Gray Zabel pick at 18 is it was a convergence for me of filling a need, the most important need, the last remaining non-starter available on the current roster need, as well as almost the best player available. Like, there were a lot of people, Jeremiah, Brugler, list goes on and on, of folks who had him graded in this range, anything from 25 to down to 11. And so it was kind of a perfect alignment of value and positional need and just taking care of that one thing that Seattle really has had a hard time fulfilling over the years.
And scheme
And
fit.
scheme fit. Yeah.
You
Scheme fit.
mentioned
Right.
Brooks going earlier. He was not a scheme fit. He's a power. He belongs in a power, run scheme. Where you're beating the guy in front of you, and
Booker, you
that's
mean?
it. Yeah, Booker. What did I say?
Brooks.
Weird, but yeah, Booker, and where Zabel is with his agility and movement
Right.
skills and athleticism, he is custom made for an outside zone scheme that Seattle's going to be running. And so it's just straight up exactly what the Seahawks need in so many different ways. And yeah, like I said, the was it Daniel Jeremiah had him going 11th to the 49ers. So him dropping to 18 and getting picked up by Seattle. I think when we go back to our offensive line show, um, interior offensive line show, I think I declared Zabel as my obsession in this draft class. And that's never
Until we
changed
talk about your next obsession.
until we talk about my next obsession, which was the next pick. Um, Honestly, the Seahawks straight up used my draft notes for this draft.
I feel
Like
like both of us, right? By the time
you
you go
could,
through, and we'll talk about all the different players that we
yeah.
talked about during the process of the lead up, it
Mhm.
is kind of crazy. But yeah, no. So you set that Zabel pick aside. Now we're set. Thursday's done. We head out of the draft. We're not on the clock until the 50th pick in the second round. Keith, I got onto a show with Dan. We hadn't even really got through with just introductions and talking about the Zabel pick, and we were going to start to pivot into seeing what the board looked like on day 2, and they announced the trade. Seattle trades from 50 to move up to 35 and gave up their 82nd pick, which I thought was good value considering another trade earlier in the draft gave up a future first round draft pick for essentially kind of the same
Actually, they
same
moved up
sort of deal.
from 52 to 34, not from
Oh,
50.
52. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look
And
in
so,
on the draft trade chart thing as far as like value and whatnot, and it worked out like really even as far as what
yeah.
the Seahawks had to give up to move up that far.
So
A
when
third
that
round
happened,
pick is expensive. That's a high price, but it was worth it. Oh my god.
so when that happened, Keith, who did you think they were moving up for?
Honestly, if it wasn't Emanware, I have no idea because
I thought it
the
maybe would have been like Jaden Higgins or something like that, like a wide receiver or
yeah
some sort of edge rusher that, had
the
fallen.
receivers that the receivers that were available, uh, I didn't think they'd move up that far for. And so I was wondering. I didn't know which way they were going to go.
Yeah.
I
I
really
had an
didn't.
inkling
And
that it was going to be Emanware, but I just didn't want to like full on say it out loud because I didn't want to jinx it. And sure
yeah,
enough, they ran up to the clock really quickly after that trade, and he was the pick, Nick Emanware, the safety. I think that even John Schneider said that they considered trying to move back up into the first round to select him and
yeah,
decided to not do that. But here's the unicorn we spent a lot of time talking about this prospect, Keith,
yeah,
over several different shows. And particularly our last show right before the draft, we kind of came back around to some of the prospects that we really liked in this draft and that who we thought would be excellent Seahawk fits. And he was at the top of our list. Like we both just were like oozing, like, oh my gosh, if we came out of the draft with this guy, he's a unicorn, 6'3", 227 pounds, runs a 4.38 40, strong safety with back, he can drop back into coverage skills and
yeah.
just athleticism oozing out, like the most athletic safety ever drafted. going back to 2002 or whatever it was. So the freakish size speed combo
that,
is just crazy.
The most athletic safety, going back, that includes drafts that have Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton and Cam Chancellor,
Mm-hmm.
and Earl Thomas, and
Mm-hmm.
right, these are some great safeties.
Yes.
And Emanwari is more athletic than all of them.
Right. So it gives you tremendous upside, right? The upside is the best safety that's ever played, right? So there's that upside ceiling out there that's so tantalizing that, and then you give him to Mike McDonald, who is amazing with safeties and linebackers, and they play significant special roles in his defenses. And this guy is really just set up in the ideal place, in the ideal team, in the ideal scheme with the ideal coach. And he's going to get his opportunity to be extremely successful. And it's hard for me to figure out a way that this fails, but I got to be careful. He's got, the film says that he's a great player, just the film alone, not the workout, not the athletic, freakish stuff. Just the film says that he's a second round draft pick, at least with some upside. And so he's not a bad ball player coming in. Like, he's already ready made. I think he's going to, he's going to get snaps. He's going to play. His role will continue to evolve and grow, and he'll earn more snaps, and it'll just be better and better. But
but he's also not polished. Like,
right.
He's a good ball player in part because of his athleticism and his ability to make up for mistakes and that kind of stuff. As he continues to get coached and continues to refine his technique and become more polished, he's only going to get better. And that should excite everybody. I mean, there's a reason why, if there are two players in this draft that I would have pounded the table for, it would have been Gray Zabel and Emanwari.
Matt Miller called this the best draft pick in the draft.
Yeah. Honestly,
he called it, he said Seattle moved up and stole a top 20 draft pick on his board. And he thinks a lot of other people viewed him that way. And
if he had been taken at 18, would you have batted an eye at that?
And Zabel at 35, 34? No, I wouldn't have. I mean, I would have not. I would have been excited, and it would have been like, wow, they tried to knock, they tried to hit a home run. Yeah, is what I would have thought. They took a swing on a player that had so much upside and so tantalizing to them that they couldn't pass. And they had to stick and pick, and he was the guy. I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. I think they still would have got an A grade for most draft pundits on that pick. And then, Zabel at 34 would have made complete sense too, maybe even higher positional value.
The 34.
Probably not.
I don't believe that.
Right. And so, but anyway, we got both players that we both really kind of coveted out of this draft. If Seattle, the best case scenario, if Seattle can come out of the draft with these two players, that's essentially what we did for a lead up, for a month prior to the draft. And here we are. Crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
and I would argue it went even further for you, because you're like third best player that you wanted Seattle to come out of the draft with ended up going at pick 50 overall.
Yeah. So this was actually kind of a surprise for me that they went Arroyo. Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami, at pick 50. It was a surprise because it felt like I was the only person who was just really in on him. And
agreed.
Then because he just went to the Senior Bowl and freaking dominated. And he wasn't as productive at Miami as you would have thought, or any of that kind of stuff. But he went to the Senior Bowl and just freaking dominated everybody, and then went to the combine and had a tremendous workout. Um, and I was in on that. I mean, this is a guy who's unpolished, but he has every um, trait you could want in a tight end, and the size, the effort in blocking, the speed and athleticism to get open in the passing game. Like, he's just raw. But even raw, he went and dominated at the Senior Bowl. Um, and I just he's a guy with elite athletic traits. He really is. He needs some coaching. He can definitely improve. He is not a finished product by any means. But
Let's be fair to him. The
elite.
only reason why he's not completely finished, Keith, is really he only has 1 year of production. He hurt his knee back in 2022 or 23, and then came back. Maybe that was 22. Came back, didn't didn't recover in time, and so he kind of almost spent 2 years not really being productive. I think 15 catches over 22 and 23, and then last year was his breakout year. Where he put up a 16.9 yards per catch and had 500 some odd yards, a lot of touchdowns, a lot of first downs, started all 13 games. And what you saw was a guy that can manipulate space, a guy that knows where the soft zone coverage is, gets there, gets the ball in his hands, is really good after the catch. Just a vertical field stretcher, and he's going to be a natural pass catcher. Like all that shows up on film, right? So the pass catching part of the tight end position he's got, and then he's going to one of the best pass catching and or just tight end staffs in the NFL. Like Seattle really hasn't had an offensive coordinator like Clint Kubiak before, where he's just really methodically thinks about how everything fits together. And his use of the tight ends is going to blow people's minds, I think, in Seattle, because we just haven't optimized our tight end room for years and years.
Ever.
And he is the guy that's going to do that. And now we just handed him a really nice weapon. You've still got Fant on the roster. We'll see what happens there. He's got a $9 million cap hit. Not sure if I think they want to keep that room together this year and just see how it goes. But you've got Fant and Arroyo that are going to be your pass catching kind of tight ends, and Barner and Selbert there to block. Plus we drafted a fullback / tight end kind of a guy. We'll talk about him in a second. And I think the upside in the offense is that he kind of becomes that third, fourth wide receiver / primary tight end target. And he gets a lot of targets. Like this guy could end up being targeted like 75 times in a season, which would be a high since who was the dude that nobody liked that we got from New Orleans in the trade with Unger? Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham had like 75 catches, 80 catches 1 year, and everyone just kind of blew that off. Well, that's pretty special. And I think this guy's got that upside.
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, he does. His athleticism is what makes that pick work. And I think they keep Fant for this year and then let him walk after his contract ends for comp pick reasons. But also because, you've got a guy in Barner who's not, I mean, he's more of a do everything tight end, not a pure, pass catching threat. And so you want him on the line, and then Arroyo, who's a rookie and going to be raw, and you want to get him some, bring him on as slow as he needs to be. And so,
and Matt Miller had him as his 36th best player on his board. And I like Matt Miller as an evaluator, ESPN guy. That's pretty good. Now he had him as his third tight end. He wasn't, Mason Taylor was behind him and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
all in all, amazing. Okay, I'm going to let you talk about this next pick because you were just actively in it on Dan's show, and talk to me about your reaction when it happened.
So the whole, so I came in right before the third round started, and just kind of we just went through the picks that had happened, and kind of just as guys were coming off the board, we were talking about them, but also with the idea that what's coming up for Seattle. And as they were getting close, there are a couple of guys that we had liked, Savion Williams, Caleb Branshaw, like came off the board, and we were like, Caleb Johnson is another one, and and Dan just goes like, he's like, if you're looking at this, because I was in on Deone Walker as the guy that I was thinking like, yeah, that's going to be who I'd take, and um, Dan was like, this would be the spot. It's like Jalen Monroe keeps dropping, and at some point, don't you have to just pull the trigger and take him? And I was like, if you have conviction on him, then you do it, because he's a guy that, as a runner, as a guy, as a runner, he's going to remind people of Lamar. He really is. He's not. I don't think he's quite as fast as Lamar Jackson, but he's going to remind. He's pretty damn fast, but he's going to remind people of Lamar. What he isn't going to remind people of Lamar is when he tries to throw the ball short. He throws a nice deep ball, got a strong cannon of an arm, throws the ball deep really well, but his accuracy on short passes, short to medium stuff, is not good. His footwork is terrible, and his and that's why his accuracy is poor. He has mechanical things that have to be fixed before he's ready to be an every down quarterback. But the high ceiling, the potential, the elite athletic traits, they're all there. And honestly, like, he's going to be fun this year.
So we get to 92, the pick comes off. You guys are just like, oh my goodness, right? And to me, this could end up being one of the best value picks that Seattle has. They're just taking a lottery pull on this guy, really.
It really is.
And superior elite running ability from the quarterback position. Like if you see cut ups, even if you go watch YouTube highlights of Jalen Milroe, and you're going to watch him throw the ball really well into tight pockets, over the top, really nice, complete the short, intermediate. The highlights do that, right? It's not like he can't do it. He just can't do it consistently. And that's why this is a perfect fit for Seattle. You get him into a system. He sits behind Darnold. There's no pressure. He could be a gimmick guy for you, first year or whatever.
I think he will be a gimmick guy this year.
Yeah, I think he will be. I mean, they're going to teach him the position. He's going to operate as a quarterback, but also he's going to do some run pass option stuff that we haven't seen since early days of Russell Wilson. It's going to be kind of fun. Yeah. So when this guy turns the corners, he's just kind of jogging, right? To the outside edge and looking for kind of a lane to kind of cut up with. And all of a sudden he just decides to turn it on, and he's just outside of everyone and just turns it straight up and outruns pursuits. Like he destroys pursuit lanes and angles of defenders. Like I've just not seen it. And you mentioned Lamar. Yeah, Lamar when he was a rookie in his second year, but after Lamar got hurt, I don't think he's athletically been exactly the same.
Yeah, and he's still got straight line speed.
And he's instinctive. So the thing about Lamar Jackson is he's just extremely instinctive as a runner. Like you don't have to have 4.4 speed to be a very good runner in the NFL. This guy's got legit 4.4 speed though.
Lamar has also developed so much as a passer. Like when he first came in, like there were
and that's the hope with Jalen.
And I think that Lamar coming in is a more accomplished passer than Jalen Milroe coming in. But that's also why Lamar was a first round pick and Milroe was a third. But um, the potential's there. So if you go back and you look at these first four picks, right? This is day one and day two. Zabel, elite athletic traits for an interior offensive lineman. Emanwari, elite athletic traits, regardless of position. One of the best athletes ever drafted. Arroyo, elite athletic traits as a tight end. And now Jalen Milroe, elite athletic traits for a quarterback. Do you see a pattern? Because I do. And it's not that hard to see. They
Seattle
went
had graded out as the most athletic draft out of all 32 teams.
not surprising. And Emanwari is going to have a lot to do with that, even if they didn't go with the other guys.
But I love this Milroe pick. So we talked like during the quarterback show a little bit, but I really came around, and you did too, I think a little bit. Came back after we got through all of our prospect shows and came back around to getting ready for the draft. And we were in our last few shows and we started talking about just different prospects again and kind of going through potential slots of the draft and where guys might go. And Milroe, the idea of Milroe came up, and I kind of brought it up. I was like, what do you think about Jalen Milroe, Keith? And you didn't balk. Like, I thought for sure you were just going to pan that idea, and you kind of leaned into it a little bit, and you were like, well, it would be, he's not ready yet, but if they take a shot and they really met with him and they think that they can maximize his opportunity, that he would be a good pick. And I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. Turns out that's what they thought.
I mean, when we did the quarterback show, which was our very first show of that series where we did position groups.
It was right after the Senior Bowl. Yeah.
You asked about him and I was like, nah, just pass.
Right.
Because it was right after the Senior Bowl, and during Senior Bowl week, he looked awful. He struggled so much. But honestly, the more you kind of think about it, is he ready to go out and play now? No. But the Seahawks don't need him to play now. He'll be the third string quarterback because they went and got Drew Lock also to be the backup. And so he's going to get to come in. He's going to get to learn. He's going to get to work on his fundamentals, his mechanics, his footwork, which is atrocious in the pocket. Once he gets that down, most of his accuracy issues will solve themselves, because he throws the ball off platform with his hips square or even turned in a way that they shouldn't be. He does stuff like that, and that's how he gets himself into trouble and throws the ball into the dirt and that kind of stuff. One of the reasons why he's so good at throwing the deep ball is because when he's throwing the deep ball, he keeps his base underneath him. He steps into his throws. His mechanics are solid. And so if they can get him to clean up those mechanics, some of his like short area accuracy problems will go away.
The interesting thing,
so much upside.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Milroe, there's a couple of things. He's the most physically gifted quarterback in this draft class, right? He's a walking highlight reel. Like, he can score from anywhere on the field, right? Both with his arm and his legs. Like, we talk about him, and I'm saying we in, a very large generalization. We talk about him like he can't quarterback, like he can't throw. Well, yeah, he can. He does throw, and man, he's got a missile for an arm, right? But also he routinely sails basic swing passes and crossing routes, but he also completes
completion. Those. 65% completion in Alabama. So it's not like he's throwing like 48% or whatever. He's completing a lot of passes. So you got to give him credit for that. But you're right. His name is not Myers. It could be, though, because he makes the difficult look easy and the easy look impossible. And right, that's That's the Myers trait for you. But again, I think you clean up his footwork and you get his hips where they need to be. And when his mechanics are good on his lower half, his base, he's actually pretty damn accurate. Um, he just is sloppy and
And
doesn't reset.
and he ran for 20 touchdowns last year at Alabama, 726 yards. So he's got that. He's got the running thing. Like the running thing should not be undersold either. It's legit. Now, and just, okay, so that's the fun aspect of the draft. That's a pick could pay off massive diamonds, 2 years from now. And we'll just kind of have to see how it goes. And it's a fun project to have, and almost an ideal offense for him to learn in the NFL on. A precision offense that requires timing, that values a quarterback that can complete the intermediate and underneath throws just as much as going over the top. So he's going to get a lot of reps in the things that he's not very good at. Under a regime that is going to be really patient with him. And so it's a good opportunity for him, really.
Yeah.
So this next pick confounded me in the moment, but in retrospect, I think it's going to be one of my favorite picks long term. And that's
Really?
Riley Mills, the defensive lineman, I'm going to call him. 6'5", 291. I think they're going to probably get him up closer to the 300 range by the time it's all said and done. He's recovering from an ACL that he got in December, I think. No. Yeah. College football playoff
November,
against Indiana.
yeah.
Indiana.
Oh,
So right at the end there. Yeah. And he was a 30 visit guy. We didn't talk about him a lot because I think he was kind of an afterthought. Injured player, ACL, it just ruins everything for you. The timing couldn't have been worse for him. I think, he goes through the process. He's athletic. He finishes out the season, no injury. He probably goes no later than the third round. But here's an opportunity for Seattle. They can sit on him. If they need to red shirt him, so be it. He comes in halfway through the season, or even if it's 2026, they've got a player they've kind of stashed and bring out again. But just all that aside, just the leadership quality, the type of player he is, the lunch pail mentality, he's a dog, all that. I think McDonald's gonna love a player like that. It's tough because you had to take him in the 5th round and he's not going to be able to do anything for you, I think, this year.
Yeah, the Seahawks not having a 4th round pick kind of hurt me. Because I go through and I look at the guys that they drafted in the 4th round, or not that were drafted in the 4th round. Sorry. And it's just a long list of guys that I liked. Jack Kaiser, Deone Walker, Danny Stutzman, Cody Simon, Luther Ransom, Kyle Kennard. Like I could just keep going. Jalen Lane, and I'm only halfway down the list. This is why not having that 4th round pick kind of hurt, because there's a lot of talent here that would have looked good in Seahawk uniforms, but they had to wait through the 4th, but then they had multiple 5th round picks, and so yeah, Riley Mills is honestly, I don't know. I don't think they get anything from him this year. I just don't think they do.
I mean, it was a December ACL, so it's, now I will say that
December or January.
Connor Williams last year, the center who came in, then retired week 8, had a similar situation where he had an ACL in November and was ready for essentially training camp and the first snap of the regular season. So it's possible. It's just not probable.
Not probable.
So that's kind of a pick that I think, as time goes on, we'll talk more about as it becomes apparent that he's kind of ready to go. But kind of a nice stash player. I really love the next pick. Like
Well,
I
would say Riley
mocked
Mills
this
was
guy.
taken two picks before Shador Sanders.
Wow. Yeah. So
We
what do
should
you
talk
think about all that?
that. Honestly, you and I had talked about there were reasons for him to drop. I didn't think he would drop that far. I figured at some point someone would step in and you
Yeah.
know, just do it. But there were reasons for him to drop. There really were. And he did not handle the pre-draft process well. He acted like he was a top 5 pick, and clearly he
Entitled.
wasn't.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. It's a tough deal. I thought the floor in the draft for him would have been Pittsburgh at 21.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I hope Seattle doesn't take him at 18. And then after Pittsburgh, it was a fall that obviously didn't stop until the 5th round.
What was interesting
Cleveland had already picked
Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon quarterback situation. In round 3, and then they got him they took Shador Sanders in round 5.
Do you hear what Dion said today?
No.
He inserted his foot again. This is going to be a problem. He does
best.
It's going to be, and that's why the team. I'm saying that's part of the equation. It's part of the equation of why he was passed on, is they didn't want to have to deal with the circus. And he said about Shador and Dylan Gabriel being on the same team, 50 picks apart. And he said, well, Shadur's not going to take a back seat to any other quarterback. And, it was one of those, well, how is Shadur going to handle being, one of several quarterbacks competing? And it was just not the right answer. The right answer would have been Shadur's going to go in and work his ass off, and he's going to make it so they can't take him off the field. I mean, that's the right answer, not some entitled answer again. Like, they just don't get it. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. So the next pick, though, is when, I mean, this is one of those, like, if there's a guy that you and I both loved from the very beginning of this process, it's Seattle's next pick. So why don't you go ahead and gush about this guy?
Well, I'd mocked him in my last mock because we talked about it over and over again that Seattle really lacked a receiver on the roster that could take the top off. And there were several different guys. Ty Felton was a guy that you liked. Thornton from Tennessee was another guy. Torrey Horton. So we had like 3 or 4 wide receivers in this draft that could do that. And Torrey Horton was the guy that I ended up settling on at the end, right before the draft, as the guy that I thought would be an ideal fit in Seattle, just for the upside. Not just the guy that could take the top off, but a guy that could run routes and go get contested catches and all that kind of stuff. Be an actual wide receiver. And I thought that he probably, for me, had like that fringy 3rd round, 4th round grade. Just because there were a lot of wide receivers in this draft with 2nd and 3rd and 4th round grades. He was right in that mix, though. Like, to get him at the 5th round, 144th overall, I thought is a great value. I thought he probably, a lot of people had him pegged around 100, pick 100. But he's a 4.41 guy. He had injuries that kind of derailed him a little bit, especially late in this process. I think he only played 5 games in 2024. His 2023 season was outstanding. If he would have come out in 23, probably would have been a 2nd round pick. I think they get a really good talent here, and a guy that has a lot of upside, a guy that's going to make the roster, number one. So you got Cooper Kupp and Jigba, Scatling, So he's probably going to be behind Scatling on the depth chart. Jake Bobo's there. Tariq Young, we don't know what's going on there. Cody White's always been hanging around. They also drafted a guy later in the draft we'll talk about in Ricky White, the third. But this is the guy I think that has the most upside to actually get reps as like a fourth wide receiver on this roster. And he's probably going to steal reps from Bobo. And people are kind of Bobo guys, but let's be real. Jake Bobo's a fantastic player, a fantastic guy, a great special teams contributor, but he's not your optimal fourth wide receiver on a roster. I think that you're looking for a little bit more athletic upside, a little bit more speed, especially on a team that lacks players that can take the top off a defense and open up the field behind them for your other receivers that are really good, like Cuppen and Jigba, to actually be better and to be more open and kind of scheme them open a little bit. So he fits that role better than Bobo. And that's why I think he's a really good pick here.
Yeah.
How about that, Keith?
That's no, his speed size combination is legit. It is. Long arms, really long arms, just huge catch radius, great hands catcher. Has some drops, which is a problem. But if you go and look at his drops, they're always when he lets the ball get into his body. When he gets his hands out and catches it with his hands like you're supposed to, he's great. But for sometimes, he lets the ball get into his body and then it kind of just falls between his elbows.
So a couple of other things of value.
Yeah.
He's a really good blocker. Clint Kubiak's going to like that a lot.
Oh yeah.
And
I love that.
And he's returned 3 punts for touchdowns in his college career. He's a punt returner.
Mm-hmm.
I think this guy's going to probably end up winning that job. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So the next pick is one that honestly I didn't see coming.
Nobody would.
Not only did I not see coming
in the draft. This is kind of an undrafted guy, a 7th round fringy guy that you might consider. I thought it was probably one of the least valued picks that we made, but it's probably going to be one of those fan favorites by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to talk myself in to Robbie Oots,
yes,
the tight end fullback out of Alabama.
Well, you can just take the tight end part of it out. He's literally now a full-time fullback for the Seattle Seahawks. They are not listing him as a tight end. He's going to be a fullback competing with Brady Russell, another tight end conversion, for the fullback reps that are going to happen on this in this offense. Like 6'3", 274. The notes do say when you go look at him, and I haven't gone and done the film evaluation on him because I don't know if it's even worth it because all of that film was at the tight end position. He's, the basically Matt Miller wrote the best option available in this year's draft for any team in need of a true fullback. That is basically his note. Now he provided some evaluation stuff here, but it's all having to do with the tight end stuff. I think that's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is he's a good inline blocker. He's a good H-back guy. He can give you like 6 catches out of the backfield kind of a thing, at certain points in the season, but he's going to be a lead blocker and that's what he likes to do. And he said he'd rather throw the greatest lead block over a touchdown catch. Like this guy is just built to block. And so, I mean, at 175 overall, Keith, in the 5th round to take a fullback that hasn't played fullback yet, and it's kind of a projection, I'm not so sure. And I don't know if anybody else would have drafted him there. There must be a reason why they took him here as opposed to this, 6th, 7th round or traded around to try to get him or whatever. But I'm okay with it. At this point in the draft, you're looking for a guy. And if he's going to be the starter, if he's going to beat out Brady Russell, and he's going to be the guy, and he's going to be a fan favorite and a fullback for this team for like the next, 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. Nobody cares where they drafted him. It's going to be good. So,
Yeah. I mean, agreed with that. Like, it doesn't, like, the draft position is right. It's the price of doing business. Is you want this player, you got to take him at a certain spot, or you do take him at a certain spot because you want to make sure that you get him. But once they're on the roster, evaluate them for who they are, not for the draft position.
there you go.
Like, and that's hard because it's easy to hold first round picks to a higher standard than other players. But the truth is, like, that was the price of doing business on that day. Now let's see
Yes.
what they do once they have a now that they're in uniform.
So I like this next pick, Keith. I'm going to have you talk about him a little bit since you're the offensive line guy. But I thought this guy potentially could have gone in the, 4th round range. He's available there, pick 7 in the 7th round, 223 overall. Bryce Cabledew.
292 overall.
Is it? No, there's
Yeah.
not 292 picks in the draft, Keith.
Sorry,
I got him at
192. You said 132.
Okay.
I
said
screwed it up the
223.
number.
Sorry, I was wrong.
It's
192 overall. Okay.
192 overall. Kansas guard Bryce Cabledew. He's an interesting player because he was a tackle in college and has zero chance of making it as a tackle in the pros. Has some of the shortest arms you'll ever see on an offensive lineman. Like, if you ever want to, if there's ever been someone who fits the T-Rex stereotype more, I don't know who it would be. But this is a guy
What
who
are his arms? Do you know?
81.
You mean wingspan? 81-inch wingspan?
Yeah,
That's not bad.
So it was, it's like 31 and something arms. I don't remember what the wingspan is.
That's very short.
It's very short. Now you look at his tape and you look at all the stuff. He's got a lot of, 306. Most of that weight is in the lower half. Like, his legs are massive. He's got a great, his build is exactly how you'd want it to be. Quick off the ball, hits hard, is really active with his hands. Absolutely just active guy. But in the next level, can he even get his hands to the chest of a pro defensive tackle? Or is this going to be like, those, like you see when an older brother, right, holding the head of the younger brother, and the younger brother's just swinging at nothing. That's what I look at. That's why I never considered him. Is these hands his arms are short. They just really are. But if you can find a way to mitigate that, everything else about his game is good. It really is.
He's an athletic guy.
Game. Yes, everything else about his game screams like round 3 guard. But there's a limitation there with having such short arms. He's never going to be able to get his hands on the body of a defensive tackle once, after the initial punch, like once they stand up and they get extended.
There's a reason why these guys get drafted, though. These 31, the fringy 32-inch arm guys, Keith. And there's a reason why they drafted him, because he compensates with really, really good technique and really good hand placement and toughness and the experience. He's got over 3,000 snaps in college, 4-year starter. All that kind of stuff goes into his favor. And then you talk about the athleticism, where the guy fits the scheme. He can get to the second level and those reach blocks that you want to kind of get guys out there. And so you just kind of bring him in, right? He played tackle all all 4 years in college, and you bring this guy in, he's going to move inside. He's going to need that transition time anyway. He's going to, you know, he's probably fringy coveted enough where maybe you can get away with putting him on the practice squad, but also he may end up sticking on the roster, you know, just given the idea that, you know, maybe Anthony Bradford is not well suited for this wide zone blocking scheme. He's a power guy.
Or any blocking scheme.
And so maybe they value Cable do more, and Cable do kind of takes that spot. And you know, it'll all work itself out. But
I mean,
he's got some upside.
If Bradford was going to succeed, it was going to be in last year's offense, not in this year's offense. And he didn't succeed in last year's offense. He was awful. So his time on this roster, I would not be expecting it to last.
So based on the relative athletic score, the RAS score, this guy graded as elite in terms of both explosion and speed, and great in terms of agility. So to have an upside guy on the roster that you can kind of get, and our offensive line coach kind of asked for this guy. Like he wanted to make sure we drafted him.
Yeah.
So he stood up in a room and pounded the table for this guy.
He is legit everything except for the arm length. And the arm length is really concerning, but everything else is really good.
Keith, I'm counting 4 draft picks on this in this draft that are my favorite picks. I have 4 players that are my favorite picks in this draft, and I feel like I need to add just one more. I feel like if I come out of this draft with 5 favorite picks that the Seahawks made, then that's good, you know, because you can't have 4. It's got to be an odd number, 5. Damian Martinez, running back, 6 foot, 217, the 4.5, 140. That doesn't even matter. It's his running style I like. He's a big back, plays big, hits you. He's an enforcer. He runs hard. His yards after contact is elite. I think he's a top 6 guy in college football for runs after contact. Kind of a old school Chris Carson style runner. And tough interior guy as well. You know, not everything is going to be stretch zone that they're going to run, and he's good in between the tackles. He's good close to the goal line. Once you get outside, he bulldozes people, runs you over, gets the extra yards. I love that pick. I think this is another guy, for whatever reason, dropped in this draft, but I had a 4th round grade on him, and a lot of people did. And so I think it's just a great value pick at this spot in the draft, and a perfect spot really for anybody that doesn't like running backs to take a running back. Because it really didn't cost you very much.
This pick screams Chris Carson, right? Who was a 7th round pick and was really good for a couple of years, and then injuries killed him.
Yes. If not for injuries, though, Chris Carson would have been one of my favorite Seahawks of all time, just because I think he would have stuck around for a while. He wasn't going to be terribly expensive, and he was just kind of a hard-nosed runner that could glide. And he was athletic enough where he'd make some stuff and moves happen that was kind of crazy. This guy's kind of similar, really.
Yeah. And I'd be concerned about injuries. Yeah, I mean, but you're going to love him when he's healthy and out there. You really are. I mean, Seahawks fans are going to love him.
So the interior runner, 4.4 yards after contact, number 2 in the class behind Ashton Genty. 8.2% of runs were stuffed, number 1 in the class. 6.7 yards per carry in runs between the tackles, number 2 in the class. 37% of runs gained on a gained to first down, number 3 in the class overall. Damian Martinez. Good value.
Yeah.
All right, Keith, finish this thing out. What do we got?
So The next pick is Mason Richmond, pick 234 overall, offensive tackle out of Iowa, 6'5", 307. Got the length to stick at tackle. He started 52 games over his career, including 43 in a row. So
That's a lot.
he's a guy that, a lot of experience. He's seen a lot of, but and also didn't get hurt. I mean, that's really kind of the key spot there. He's a guy that needs to change his body slightly. He's got to get, he's really strong up top, but he needs to be stronger down below because um, he's gonna get pushed a little bit. I think if he moves inside to guard, it will be worse. So there's a lot of like you look at like, oh, he's gonna be, they'll move inside to guard, but I think that actually hurts him. I think his footwork and stuff work better as a tackle, and so I
John
think it would
Benton
be better.
John Benton said that they would love for him to develop and potentially be their young, quote unquote, young swing tackle to have on the
Yeah.
roster. So he would have to beat out Michael Jarrell and Josh Jones for that. Now, and or, one of those two to make the roster, I think. Otherwise, a year on the practice squad to develop those things, those deficiencies you spoke about, wouldn't be a bad result.
No,
I
not
don't
at
think
all.
either. Okay, last pick.
We're still
Ricky White.
still not done. Yeah, Ricky White the third, wide receiver out of
This guy's an
UNLV.
interesting guy. Yeah, this guy's an interesting guy. He ran a 4.61 at the combine, but when you watched him on tape, he doesn't look like he runs a 4.61. He looks like he runs a 4.4, right? So he goes to his pro day and he clocked a 4.4. So, which is much more in line with the way he looked on tape. So and you may not have known that, Keith, you may have looked at the 4.61 and had that coming into the show as your information.
Yeah, I've got
I
possession receiver, a lot of height, very thin. 6'1", but only 184. And so that's something that's going to move him down. But I think what got him drafted was he had 4 blocked punts in 2024.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, very, very active on special teams. Anytime you block 4 punts, you're doing something right. And you just got that tenacity and that grit. And that's what they're looking for there.
And he was great on jamming gunners when he wasn't blitzing. And doing that kind of stuff. Good blocker in special teams and good coverage guy on kickoffs. Like special teams got this guy drafted and might get this guy a roster spot.
So he also led college football in 2023 with 1,483 yards of receiving yards.
Yeah.
Was down a little bit in 2024, but he had those block punts. His coach said this of him: he's got such tremendous value on his practice habits, his elite playmaking skills. Whoever is drafting him is going to make a really, really great decision for the organization because he's so versatile. That was his head coach. Yeah, I just, at this point in the draft, Keith, you're drafting a guy. I think I've seen a couple of evaluations of him as being like the 27th or 28th overall wide receiver in this draft, which, the fact that he was drafted, I think Seattle basically said, okay, you're essentially an undrafted rookie free agent. We're going to prioritize you. We're going to draft you, make sure you're on our roster and not give you that choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you bring him in, you find out what you've got after you've got him in, you test him, that speed question, whether he's a 4.61 or closer to a 4.4. If you're a 4.4 guy, you might have something there. And so you just you're doing your due diligence on, and they have, they drafted him, but you bring him in, you kind of find out what you got, you work him in on the special team stuff and see if he can make your roster. Now, wide receiver, they've got more players on the roster right now at wide receiver than any other position. Cooper
Yeah,
Kupp and
and
Jigba, Scantling, Bobo, Horton, Derek Young, now Ricky White, Cody White, John Reese Plumlee, Steven Sims, River Craycroft, Tyrone Broden, which is an undrafted guy they got that's like 6'8" and 190 pounds, something like that, right? we haven't talked about undrafted guys, but so he's got a lot of uphill battle here to kind of make the roster, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of guys. I don't want to talk about the entire undrafted class, but there's a couple of guys that stood out to me, and I want to see maybe what you're thinking. Zy Alexander, the cornerback, fourth round grade I had on him, 6'1", 187 pounds, 4.56 40, which kind of probably pushed him down a little bit. Yep. ACL injury halfway through 2023, recovered, came back, but didn't really look the same. Now that he's a couple of years removed from that, I think the idea is that he'd be back to his full strength and power and speed. And then I think that's a good upside because we didn't draft a corner in this draft. And then Jared Ivey, I wanted to talk to you about this.
Jared Ivey, I'm so confused.
I am too. So I sent you that RAS score, didn't I? Where it's like a 2.0 or whatever. So he had a very, very poor athletic testing number. And here's a guy, though, on tape that looks every bit the part. 6'5", 274. He played at 285 during the season. I think Seattle would have him up at 285, 295, because I think they would want him to be kind of a base defensive end. Otherwise, there's no position on him. He's normally a guy that you would put in a 4.3. And 33.5-inch arms, 5.09 40, which is really slow. Obviously, he's not going to be moving a lot or dropping back into coverage, but he is kind of a guy that can really set the edge. Like, he plays the run really well. So that's a great start. And he's got it, he can get to the quarterback. He makes stuff happen in the backfield. He's a good cleanup guy. And you need players like that. He's a glue guy on the defense. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's one of those guys I mocked, like, to Seattle in the fourth round, during one of our mocks. So I know, and I think I gushed about him when I talked about him, just because he was just one of those things. And Samuel Monson, who works for 33rd Team, said he was scrolling the undrafted rookie free agent tracker looking for Jared Ivey, thinking to himself, the single best place in the league for him to land is Seattle. And he landed in Seattle. So it's a good place for him. We'll see what happens, but he's an undrafted guy I could see making the roster, only because if you take a look at the defensive end group on our team, you've got Jared Reed, Leonard Williams, Riley Mills, who's going to redshirt probably, Mike Morris, who hasn't done anything yet, the guy we drafted out of Michigan a couple of years ago. This will be his third year. Can you even remember a play he's been in on? And then Jared Ivey. So, I mean, he's got an opportunity to displace Mike Morris potentially.
Absolutely. Like, they keep talking, up Mike Morris, but honestly, like, he was healthy for most of last year and was a healthy scratch on a lot of games. So that's never a good sign.
A couple other guys, linebacker Jackson Woodard, UNLV, fourth round grade, captain of the defense, Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year, 6'2", 234. They really like this guy. They paid him a big guaranteed bonus as well, like over $200,000 to come in. Isis Waxler, Villanova, defensive back, 6'1", 209, a little slow at 4.56 40, but had a 1.53 split, which is excellent. 35-inch vertical. Talking about converting him from cornerback to safety. So that's a process, and that might be kind of a hanging around the practice squad kind of a guy, but some upside there. There's a bunch of other guys, and we can get into them later as time goes on, Keith. But overall, tell me what your thoughts are on this draft and expectations going in, and were they met?
Um, there's a lot of players we've talked about today. They went in with a bunch of picks, moved around, got some more picks, got some higher picks. Uh, Ultimately, got some of the most athletic guys in the draft. Um, Mike McDonald wants to be physical compared to other teams, bigger, stronger, faster, more physical, and they did that. I mean, Gray Zabel is going to be that on the offensive line. Emanwari is going to be that. In the secondary, Arroyo is going to be that as a tight end. Um, Milrow is going to be that if he ever gets on the field as a quarterback, because quarterbacks aren't built like him. Um, they got a bunch of guys that are going to make this roster and are going to have an impact. And that's weird to say because typically you get like 3 guys that can make an impact as a rookie. Like some guys, though more guys than that will get playing time, but I mean truly make an impact.
I will say
Um,
this: they drafted out of 11 picks, they had 9 of them on offense.
that's
Our,
true.
our offense last year was,
Awful.
well, it was broken. Our offense was broken. Um, we were
Yeah.
18th in scoring, 14th in total yards, 8th in passing yards, 17 yards per carry, 18th in EPA per play. It was worse than that at times. Terrible running the football, 28th in yards, 29th in attempts, 21st in EPA. Even though as an offense, we faced the lightest, 4th highest percentage, lightest box in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So, the whole thing is gone now. I mean, Geno Smith is gone. DK Metcalf is gone. Tyler Lockett's gone. Laken Tomlinson's no longer here. Connor Williams retired. Forsyth is gone. Pharaoh Brown is gone. I mean, they needed to kind of revamp this offense. They brought in a new coaching staff. They drafted 9 out of 11 players to the offensive side of the ball. They did a
Which
few
I'm
things in
surprised at.
free agency.
I was surprised that they drafted so many offensive players simply because Mike McDonald is still the head coach and he wants to have the number 1 overall defense. And so you'd expect there to be
Yeah.
uh, some push for him to get defensive guys, even though the offense is worse and the offense is the side that needs the talent. Um, but I'm still surprised. 9 out of 11 on offense.
Tell me one thing that you're disappointed in that we didn't come out of the draft with.
We didn't come out of the draft with a nose tackle.
Yeah, they said that they still had some work to do on the defensive
Yep.
line in particular.
Yep. And
So it wouldn't
then we
surprise
also
me
didn't
if,
come out of the draft with a cornerback,
yeah,
which was the other option for what I was going to say.
yeah,
But
interesting.
again, they went all offense. So
So you mentioned that McDonald wanted to be a top defense in the NFL, and I believe that to be true. And they were on trajectory to be top 5 when the season ended. Their last 8 weeks, they were top 5. And they added like a huge playmaker in Emanwari. Is that enough? Is that enough to keep them there?
Maybe. I have some questions on the defensive line. I do. They didn't get a nose tackle, and I think they're going to need that for short yardage stuff and just to make everything work right.
Jonathan Hankins
Otherwise,
has been a guy that I've heard talk that could now be re-signed after the draft. I just don't know that he was necessarily that good last year.
he wasn't good. That's the thing. He wasn't good. And now he's only going to be another year older, another year removed from the last time he was good.
Yeah,
Right
I
now,
do have to
though,
say I was a little disappointed. that we didn't come out of the draft with a defensive tackle, nose tackle.
Yeah.
And there were so many.
Right now, the starting nose tackle is John Reed.
Yeah. With Byron Murphy taking snaps there as well, and Leonard Williams comes in and moves around a little bit too. And yeah,
All
that's,
three of those,
to me, that's the poor way to do a defense, Mike McDonald defense.
Those three guys are your starters, and they will move around, and all three guys will take snaps at all three positions. But John Reed is he's the closest thing to a nose tackle on the roster at the moment.
They don't have a double team space either. Like none of those guys can take on two gaps.
No, they're all three of them are penetrators.
Yeah.
So
that's to be determined.
But they got a fullback.
But overall, though, I mean, I'm giving this a solid A as far as a grade, especially the first 4 picks. I'm going to say A+. It kind of, it tails off a little bit at the end. I will admit that, but there are a couple like Horton and Martinez and Riley Mills. I think is going to end up being one of those picks that we all love as time goes on, just not immediately. But
yeah,
you could easily say A+,
and
but
Horton.
A, solid A.
Yeah, the top 4 picks in Horton, to me, those are 5 elite picks, all guys that will have an impact this year.
Yeah.
Like impact players this year.
By the time this season is over, you're going to add Robbie Untz's name to that list, Keith.
We shall see. That pick is still the one. It's like you look at what they did, and there's a lot, and that one pick just stands out like a spotlight of just what the hellness. I just don't know what to do with that pick. And I
know.
Who drafts a fullback in this day and age? Like at all, especially one that's never actually played the position. And then and it wasn't a 7th round pick. Like,
watch him be a Pro Bowler, man. I'm serious.
You know what?
Like, watch it.
I'm all for it. Look,
do they even have a Pro Bowl spot for a fullback anymore?
I don't know.
I don't even know. And I watch football all the time. I don't even know the answer to that question.
If they do, it's been Kyle Juszczyk for every year since he joined the league, because there isn't another one. But honestly, like people say, when I don't like a pick like that one. Oh, you're just going to root for him to fail? Nah, he's a Seahawk. I'm rooting for him to succeed.
Oh, sure.
I may not.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't care. Go kick some ass, kid. Like that's my take on it.
He's one spot above Chris Stoll on the relevant factor on the roster, and that he's got room to grow. So you started right above Chris Stoll, but he's got room to get above like D'Anthony Bell and a couple other fringy guys.
How many people listening remember who Chris Stoll is? He's the long snapper, everybody.
He's the current long snapper, not some guy. So fun draft. It met expectations, I think. You go in with expectations. You had 5 picks in the top 100, right? You gave up one of those to go get like one of the most dynamic defenders in all of the draft in Emanwari. So that giving up that 82nd overall pick to me is worth it. And everything else was just, they moved around a little bit here and there. They were able to get value out of Sam Howell. They increased their draft value by 30 picks in the 5th round to do that. So it's just a pick swap. And that is kind of what I expected, to be completely honest.
They got Sam Hill off the roster and moved up in the 5th round, 30 picks, almost an entire round, not quite, but close.
Yeah.
To get up near the top. And he didn't belong on the roster, especially after the.
And that generated that Riley Mills pick, essentially. So we'll see.
Which is part of why it's part of them going and drafting a guy that's probably going to redshirt and not play here, and then essentially be like an extra draft pick a year from now, in terms of getting a guy.
Yes.
I'm okay with that because all they did was they got him. They moved up to where they could because by trading a guy that was going to get cut anyway.
Yeah. And Torrey Horton was right there too. They had almost back-to-back picks there at 4 overall in the 5th round, and then 6th pick in the
Yep.
5th round as well. So
Torrey Horton.
yeah,
God,
fun.
that's such a good. I love him. He's
Yeah.
gonna be fun. He's gonna be fun. If
All
there's
right.
someone who can make the Seahawks fans forget about DK Metcalf a little bit, it's gonna be Horton. He's
If there's a
big,
player that's going to
tall.
make people forget about DK Metcalf, it's going to be Nick Emenwari.
Yeah, maybe because he's built in the same way,
He's
just
just a yeah.
muscular, fast.
So what's happening, I think, to this roster and it's kind of a slow, methodical process, but I think this roster is getting made into Mike McDonald's image,
It is.
and he's a defensive guy,
Mhm.
and I think we just ended up getting the alpha out of this draft that's going to be Mike McDonald's defense, and that's Emenwari. Like if he
Absolutely.
realizes his potential, that's going to be the warrior dude we all want to buy the jersey of.
So you go look at Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton, who are the two kind of elite strong safeties in the league right now. He's bigger, stronger, faster than both of them,
Younger. Yes.
and younger. I'm just saying, like
Yeah. He's the whole package.
he has. There are other guys, other safeties that went before him because they're more polished, but he has the highest ceiling. He may have the highest ceiling of any player in this draft, other than maybe Gentry, the running
Not
back.
not named Jalen Milrow. I said,
Oh, that's
you
hard.
said
That's hard.
highest upside. You said highest upside. I'm saying Jalen Milrow's highest upside is Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I'll give you that. I guess it's just he has a lot further to go to reach that
Yes,
upside than
true.
Emenwari has to get to where he needs to go.
But if you take a look at overall value, the quarterback position is so much more valued that I think Milrow's got that opportunity to really be the knockout of the park, be the defining pick out of this entire draft
Hmm.
when it's all said and done. But he's got to realize that potential. If not, he's just an afterthought, a guy that will never be remembered as a
Yeah,
3rd round pick that, just
he's
washes out.
he's just Taysom Hill.
Or that's the floor.
Yeah. He if he doesn't fix the things that he needs to fix and get to where he needs to be, he's going to remember it as, wow, we spent his 3rd round pick on another Taysom Hill.
But Taysom Hill was really good when he was really good.
Yeah, no, he made a massive impact on um on those seasons that he was with New Orleans. Like
Yeah.
he made a difference to that team. And I think that's the floor for Jalen Milrow.
All right, let's get out of here. Fun draft. Thanks for all the process, the people that stuck with us through all those prospect shows and the lead up. It was fantastic. I think it worked out splendidly. We have got shows coming up. We're doing, they're doing mini camps and all that stuff. So the undrafted guys, I don't think we need a show on that. We talked about the guys that are mostly relevant. So yeah, I think we'll wind down for a minute and put down a few shows here in the next couple of weeks, and then kind of build it back up after that as we head into the doldrums of summer, which are long, but it gives us an opportunity to our question and answer and beer tasting show.
Yes, and we will also in that time where there's no news because the league essentially has shut down until just before training camps. We will use that time to look at Seattle's roster in great detail. now that all of the
Yeah.
offseason has happened.
Yeah. And the coaching staff, I think, and the
Yeah.
scheme, especially the offensive side. I really want to understand that. Okay. Find Keith on, I was going to say Twitter. You can. He's probably not going to be there. At Myers NFL. You can find him on Blue Sky at Myers NFL as well. I am at NW Seahawk on both locations as well. And the show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, share it, like it, leave a comment, all that good stuff. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.